There is a war in America. This is War in America. I'm your host, Jonathan Warren. Today is October 8th, 2025. It's a Wednesday. We're taking some time off, but we're back, ready to get rolling. A lot of things going on, a lot of things to talk about. Let's go ahead and get started. Jump right into it. So, Greta Thunberg and the flotilla. This was news a few days ago. They got rounded up. I already, reported on that, but there are now allegations going around that she was quote unquote tortured and that she was actually abused. They said that she was beaten, starved, dehydrated, put in a cell with bed bugs, infested, and that she was forced to kiss an Israeli flag. So it appears to be credible at this point because so many different people have said that. A lot of the people who witnessed it allegedly said that, and not only that, but Gavir, I think is what his name is, the one of the ministers of Israel. I think he's the defense minister, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but he actually said he was proud that she was treated like terrorists are treated. So it seems to be confirmed that they actually did that to her, which is unbelievable. It just seems like they have no, basis in reality and no accountability to international law or any other country for that matter. As we know, the United States is protecting them. And, I watched Tim Dillon's show on that, and it was, hilarious as always. But I don't think she should be bombed by Israel, as he said. But, is this a positive thing that she's doing? Is it productive? I don't know. It's better than the climate change crap, but at least, it's getting some attention. If there needs to be more attention on the Gaza situation, it's certainly succeeding in that. So I guess, that's fine. I heard Andrew Tate is going to join the next one. So we'll see how that goes with this mega yacht. It looks like, Israel might seize it from him. Right? That would be big news, right? So last week, I was talking about there was a lot of censorship, on TikTok being seen now that Ellison is in charge. We're also seeing that on X. As Netanyahu said, the battlefields are TikTok and X. Now we're seeing X crackdowns. We saw, I think it was uncensored AI get taken down. I know there's a couple others, but one of the Reich meme pages, basically. People are getting shut down. There was definitely an obvious shift in pro-Israel accounts, a boost to those, and definitely I felt shadow banned for a little bit. It looks like they backed off of this, at least in the short term. But with that being said, they did announce that they're going to actually crack down on, pro-Gaza, they say pro-Hamas accounts, but really it's pro-Gaza, pro-Palestinians, just anti-killing children, get you banned on X right now. Looks like they backed off of that a little bit because of such a huge backlash. But who knows how long that's going to last, and who knows if, it's going to be permanent or not moving forward. But, as I've stated on X, the battle for TikTok was lost. We lost that one. TikTok's gone. RIP. But the battle for X is just beginning. And let me tell you, people are riled up. People are ready to go. People are ready to fight back because if we lose X, there's really no major social media site at all that we can use on that level to coordinate and to communicate about these issues, namely child murder. And for some reason, X seems to not like people talking about or pointing out the fact that Israel is murdering a lot of children. And even since this so-called peace deal that Trump announced, which I'll speak on in a little bit, even after that, there's more and more bodies being shown, more and more pictures of dead children coming out. And this is a travesty. This is a horrid, catastrophe. And it's just inhumane. We've got to do something. We got to do something because we're funding it. It's coming out of our tax dollars. These people are hiding behind our country to do it. Absolutely unacceptable. And we'll, continue to speak out against it until it stops. I promise you that. Portland and Chicago are having ICE protest clashes. I, briefly spoke about this the other day. I think it's been, a good 4 or 5 days since I've been on, but it's kind of the same thing going on. There's just a bunch of crazy people around the ICE locations in these cities, and it's just getting tense and more. I think I reported that Nick Sorter got arrested for taking a burning flag and putting it out. He got released the next day. Now he's like suing and asking for discovery. Pam Bondi made a statement on it. Trump made a statement on it. But now we're seeing, people getting shot, people ramming the ICE vehicles and being more and more confrontational with ICE. We saw that a Latin King member, a gang member in Chicago, got arrested for putting out a hit on ICE agents, which was just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's like you're not actually doing anything, you're just saying something that is clearly, going to get you locked up for a long time. So that seems to be really escalating. I've seen that Trump is moving National Guard from California to Oregon, from Texas to Oregon. Texas has volunteered their state National Guard. I think it was National Guard, but they're all, arming up. They're getting ready to take on the citizenry in these places. And, I just hope it's not a pretext for what to come to the rest of us. A lot of people sit here saying that Trump is just preparing AOC's machine when she's in power to go against everybody. And I really hope that's not the case. But, they can't tolerate, obviously, federal agents being under threat. They can't tolerate violence in the streets. And they certainly can't, stop deporting people, because we had 250,000 people a month coming in here from God knows where, doing God knows what. And who knows what they did before they came here. We don't know who these people are. And furthermore, we're broke. We are broke as shit. We're almost $38 trillion in debt. Our healthcare sucks. Our education sucks. Our housing situation sucks. Our roads suck. Everything is broken. We cannot afford to take care of the entire population. Let me add something to my notes real quick. All right, next thing I want to talk about is the Russia tensions are getting worse. It does not seem to be getting better at all. It just seems to be escalating. I saw a video today where, a Russian killed 5 Ukrainians on his own, which, is impressive, but it's devastating. It's devastating that these people are dying. It's devastating to see like old men being rallied together and rounded up in Ukraine and being forced to die in this, mechanical warfare, which is run by drones primarily, and distance artillery fire and missiles from hundreds of miles away. That shit is crazy. That shit is hell. And Trump said he was going to stop it. He's not stopping it. If anything, what I've seen is that Finland has opened up a new headquarters for NATO, that there's all of these Navy vessels being deployed and sent to the area. So we just, we're really gambling with World War III, as Trump would say. It's not a good idea. Putin seems to be laughing it off, which is a terrible sign. Trump is sitting here saying Putin's full of shit, and he's just going to continue it no matter what we do. So I just really hope that there's, some kind of give and take here. As Trump says, everybody's trying to posture, hopefully for negotiations, hopefully not for increased military action, hopefully not for escalation and, mass casualties, as we've already seen. We've already seen millions die, or well over 1 million at least, and hundreds of thousands of refugees. And, there's no even knowing how much this has cost. This has probably cost trillions when you add up all the weapons, all of the economic opportunities being lost, all of these things that are going on, all the land destroyed. It's ridiculous. All the sanctions being implemented, the threat to the US dollar, the threat to the oil market. It's a mess. It's a huge mess. It's bad for everybody, and it's got to stop. This is what he ran on. I don't know why we're still doing this. This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. They have more nukes than anybody. They've all backed out of the nuclear arms treaties, so now there's like a potential for a nuclear arms race, which, do we need more nukes? Do we really need more of this? This is just, it's insane. It's insane. The brinkmanship is not like it used to be, because there's just so much more at stake. Any of these people at any point could destroy the entire planet, wipe out every person, essentially, or at least, enough to destroy civilization for that matter. And do we really want a civilizational reset? Do we really want an extinction level event where all the plants and animals are gone. The sun is blocked out for 10, 20 years. There's radiation levels on a high level. We don't want to live in Fallout. I played that game. It was a fun game, but it seemed like a shitty place to be. It did not seem like a good place to be. So God, I hope we can avoid that. Oh, that is a big fear. So I saw that Mexico had either proposed or passed a law to put people in jail for up to 6 years for posting memes. The president of, I can't remember her name, Mexico, was apparently Jewish. I don't know how that works. But this lady apparently said that, if you make fun or criticize a politician in a meme, you can be put in jail for 6 years. And God bless America for our freaking First Amendment. No other country really in the world at this point even has, a semblance of that. Even the place where, we got the idea, which was supposedly Great Britain, they're, sitting here saying, be careful what you post. It's ridiculous. I would probably be in jail for my whole life if I lived in any other country at this point, because what I post, last night I edited some picture of Josh Hammer because he was the punching bag of the internet. We'll get into that. He was the punching bag of the internet last night, and at least on X. And I edited this picture to make him look a little demonic. Didn't take much work, I gotta be honest. He has the characteristics of an evil bastard already. And, even that alone would have gotten me thrown in a re-education camp in probably any other country in the world. So, RIP Mexico freedoms, if they ever had it in the first place. They have so many assassinations of their politicians, that it's just like, how can we even sit there and call them a democracy? How can we call their government legitimate? They're obviously controlled by drug cartels and, what we would call the mafia, more or less. Organized crime basically runs that country. And you could argue the same here, but at least our political assassins are big news. They're rare. They're not, every day like you see in Mexico. So hopefully we don't get to that point. So I think I reported a few days ago, I think Friday was the last day that I've done a show, that what I call the 7K clan is, full on sprinting. It's a bunch of influencers that Netanyahu admittedly on camera hired to post pro-Israel memes, anti-Palestine memes. And it's just, apparently they're getting $7,000 each post. So it really backfired, the public information, as far as that goes, because every single person who posts anything Israel related is assumed to be paid now. Marjorie Taylor Greene has said that they need to register as foreign agents under the FARA Act, the Foreign Agent Registration Act. And I completely agree. She even said that they need a little asterisk or a little colorful check mark so that we know to identify these people and let us know, hey, this person works for a foreign government. They are not America first. They are not pro-America for that matter at all. They are literally working for the feds of another country. And, now everybody assumes it. So even the people who are legitimately feeling this way, legitimately supporting Israel, now are assumed to be paid fucking shills, And Tim Dillon, man, I love this guy. His content is hilarious. I watch his show now religiously. Every week, it's one of my favorite things to do. I really wish he would do it more often because it's really not enough for me. I really just, would love to go to one of his shows. He is a hilarious guy, but I've never seen somebody who can speak the truth so fluently, except for maybe George Carlin, and really have such political, points that are truth laden and really hit home and paint a beautiful picture of what the fuck is our problem and what is really going on in the world. So when he was talking about the whole 7K clan, it was just on point, hilarious, and enlightening, informative. I would encourage everybody to check him out. Tim Dillon Show on YouTube, the channel. And man, he is just hitting home run after home run on these things. So I'll talk about the Gaza peace deal now, so-called peace deal. It's really a surrender, terms of surrender, as we all know. But they may be able to at least, stay in Gaza. They may be able to keep the land under Trump's insistence, supposedly. Now, a lot of people are suspecting, and I am suspicious, that Trump is just trying to delay and, provide more cover for Netanyahu to do what he's doing and for Israel to finish what they want to do, which is destroy every single building, make the area completely inhabitable, and then force the people to go to some other country. Like the people who are, have survived, the people who are not dead, which, at this point, I, have kind of come to terms with this as a genocide. They obviously couldn't just wipe everybody out in one day and expect, to keep that land and to keep, I guess, people from, retaliating in the area, especially the Arab nations. But they've done as much as they can without that. You know what I mean? They're at this point declaring every citizen in Gaza a terrorist. They're sitting here incrementally, systematically taking out each skyrise, each remaining, hut basically in Gaza, and you're just seeing child after child and body after body coming out of there. It's so painful. It's so terrible to watch, and I really just have stopped, even looking because I'm already radicalized enough. I don't need to see anymore. I know what's going on. I know what's happening. But the most frustrating part about all of this is the fact that, they really just, are almost angry that they're getting their hostages back. And that was the terms, immediately we're going to get the hostages back. Hamas is like, how the fuck are we supposed to even get to the hostages if you're bombing the shit out of us? So, Bibi Netanyahu at least publicly said that he would stop just to allow that at least. But I mean, who's to know or who's to say that they would follow through? I certainly wouldn't trust them at this point. I just don't think Hamas and Gaza and Palestine have any other option at this point. They really have been put into a corner, as they were before. Even before October 7th, they were kind of in a corner. But now it's like, okay, do we really want to sacrifice every single person to the last person for, this dirt, this land? And I don't think they really want to do that. I think they are willing to at least give up the hostages for sure. And, they're supposedly getting some hostages in return, which nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about the fact that Israel has had thousands of Palestinians and Gazans in what they call administrative detention for decades in some cases, certainly several years. And this is, without charges, without trials. This is just indefinite detention. Some cases, minors. And a lot of cases, it's just like hostages, just for, them to negotiate with, more or less. So you are seeing, hostage deals being sorted out, and Hamas is trying to round up all the hostages. They're like, if we can find them, we'll get them to you. They may be under some rubble at this point. It seems like at this point, the biggest threat to the hostages is Israeli bombs, Israeli tanks, Israeli guns even. They've just been documented killing so many of their own hostages and really not wanting these hostages back for the simple fact that they won't have any excuse anymore. They won't have a valid reason to continue this war other than just to completely annihilate these people and to take their land. And I think they've been really, begrudging doing that for that reason. I think there's been a sabotage strategy that Netanyahu's used to completely backtrack and make these negotiations difficult. That's why they bomb the negotiators, because they don't give a shit about the hostages. They're more than willing to sacrifice them, as we've seen in the Hannibal Directive. Yoav Gallant admitted they used the Hannibal Directive on October 7th. And I want to talk about that a little bit too, but we'll get to that here in a second. I mean, geez, they don't care about their hostages. They're mad that they're getting their hostages back. Because what does that mean? They don't have an excuse anymore to kill these children. They don't have an excuse anymore to starve and wipe out these people in aid lines and bomb every single building. If there's no hostages, then what are you doing this for? You're just doing it to punish them, to hunt them, to make their lives miserable and take the land. That's, we all know that's what this is about. It's just a joke to ever pretend otherwise. But Trump is supposedly going to put his foot down and not let that happen. I really will be surprised if that's actually what happens. And Hamas has even agreed to disarm themselves, which I think is, a ridiculous request under the circumstances. Unless Israel is going to disarm themselves too, why would the Palestinians disarm themselves? Because as history shows, if you give up your guns, what's the first thing that happens? Is, they come and kill you. They come and kill you because you don't have any way to defend yourself. But Hamas has said they'll, give up the weapons. They'll give it to Egypt or some other Arab entity. And frankly, I don't know if they have much of a choice. They may have to do that. But I think they are, being smart about it in terms of just like saying, hey, we agree to most of these things, but we really need to see the IDF back the fuck out. We need to see, a deoccupation, basically. Like, we need to see the forces backed up a little bit. But Netanyahu is telling, the other people, he's saying one thing to us and telling his people something else in Hebrew. But, it's not like we don't have translations. He's sitting here saying, oh, yeah, we're going to get our hostages back and we're going to stay in Gaza. And it's just like, that's not what the fucking deal says, man. Are you going to follow the deal or not? But I really hope that's the case. I really hope that happens. I really hope so. I'm just very skeptical. All right. So this is kind of like a, I don't know, not a big news at all because as we know, InfoWars got hit with like a $1.3 billion settlement. And a federal judge ordered them to liquidate and sell it, but there's appeals and bankruptcy kind of ways that Alex Jones is trying to skirt around it and delay it. Which good, 1.3 billion is way too much. It was way unfair. Alex Jones has, he's wavered a little bit, I would say, in his quality, but he's an OG and we really have a lot to thank to him. The reason I even named my show War in America is as a tribute to InfoWars and, mixed with my name a little bit. So it's War in America. InfoWar is the war I'm referring to. And, hopefully it doesn't become a violent war and then it'll be literally war in America. But right now we are in an info war. We are in a war of information, a war of minds and hearts and, censorship and communication. So Alex Jones, kind of built the foundation for a lot of that, and we have a lot to thank, from him, or a lot from him to thank. And I just really would hate to see InfoWars just be dissolved and split up into pieces and blown into the wind. Obviously, I don't think they're going to shut him up by any measure. He probably has backup ready to go. But with that being said, he sat here and said that yesterday, an agent was going to come in and they may seize the place or whatever. I looked it up. That seems like more of a money grab situation where he's just trying to fundraise, which, I mean, I get it. He owes a lot of money right now. So I don't know if he has much of a choice. But his next court appearance is not till November or something. So, they got a lot of time. And I still think it's a long way from going to the Supreme Court. He said he will appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court, which that may be a very interesting and famous, key case. So I don't think there's any really things progressing as far as that goes. I don't think there's any developments. It was kind of like a big, I don't know, distraction, honestly, because nothing happened yesterday, it didn't seem. He kept hyping it up on Tuesday, something's going to happen. And then as far as I know, nothing happened. At least he didn't talk about it. Maybe he has a gag order. Maybe he can't talk about it. But as far as I know, InfoWars is still around. He's still on the air. He's still talking. So maybe I'm wrong. The shutdown is still going on. We're in I don't know, the 8th day or so. Government shutdown has not affected my life at all. Honestly, I think, it's been kind of a nice break from the feds. The sky's been clear as everybody's joking around. There's no chemtrails in the air. Even Massey made a statement about that. Certainly less so, but who knows? I don't know if I believe all that or not. There's really no way to know without evidence of verification. However, the shutdown is concerning because it just speaks to the level of dysfunction that our government is facing. It speaks to the partisan divides because both sides are telling a completely different story. It shows that half the country is living in one reality, half the country is living in a different one. And who knows who the fuck's telling the truth? The Republicans are sitting there claiming the whole thing's about funding illegal immigrants. And then the Democrats are sitting here saying, no, it's the ACA. It's the Affordable Care Act that we want to fund. All the premiums will go up. All the costs will raise. But as Marjorie Taylor Greene pointed out, there's, hundreds of problems that we have with our healthcare system. It's not this one, just throw money at it kind of fix that the ACA has been doing. If anything, it's just been building a bubble that, is bound to burst eventually. And that's kind of looks like what we're about to face is these skyrocketing premiums, skyrocketing healthcare. A lot of people are losing coverage, but it's just like the government should have never been really doing that in the first place. They shouldn't have been subsidizing these insurance companies, basically, rigging the system in their favor, choosing winners and losers. And now we're bankrupt, and now we can't afford it. So any cuts, I think, is a positive thing. But if we're not making much more substantial cuts, we're fucked. So it's just like throwing a band-aid at a gushing Titanic hole. Like the geyser hit the Titanic, and we're throwing like duct tape on it. That's not going to work at this point. We really need to cut the military. We need to cut entitlements. We need to cut all these things if we're going to have any chance of balancing the budget, paying off our debt. The interest rates alone, I believe, are over $1 trillion a year. That's insane. That is insane. And it just shows that we're fucked financially. And, Trump speaks to growth. He speaks to like tariffs as the cure. But it's like you can't tax yourself into wealth, A. And B, it's just like we're facing this AI revolution. We're facing this robot revolution. That could actually hurt the economy quite a bit because it's going to make a lot less consumers, a lot less workers. There's reports coming out that 100 million jobs could be gone in the next 5 years. So how are we going to keep growing in that frame of mind unless we just pump money into 1 or 2 or 3 corporations? And you're sitting here seeing that the government is buying up, shares in corporations, Intel, and I saw some rare earth mineral companies, and he's thinking about doing U.S. Steel. He's thinking about doing some oil companies. Well, that's that never works. That's socialism. That's straight up socialism. That's owning the means of production. That's communist vibes. So how is that supposed to work? That's not going to be authentic. That's just central planning. That's just making numbers out of thin air. And when you do that, then the game is over. Then the game is really over. I mean, we might have some kind of form of abundance when it comes to the robots doing all the labor and everything, but without communism, we're going to be forced into it. That's what I see happening, because without like the basic income, as they say, the guaranteed basic income, then how the fuck can people buy anything if they can't work? It's going to be messy. It's going to be ugly. And we have a couple years before we have to worry about that, but it's coming. And I just think that the plan of Trump saying, "Oh, we're just going to grow forever," is insane. It's ridiculous. It's out of touch with reality. And I think he just knows that he won't be really around, or won't certainly be the president when it happens, so he won't be blamed for it. I think that's what he cares about. He just cares about his legacy. He cares about how he was remembered. He's like, I won't be the president when the bubble bursts. So, I mean, if it's J.D. Vance, then J.D. Vance is the arbiter of fucking, pain and suffering. He's taking away our freedoms and, cutting us a small check to scrape by, line up for the bread lines, things like that. Oh, I really just, we got to pray, we got to fight, we got to keep talking about these things, we got to keep facing these issues head on. We can't put our head in the sand. We can't just, zone out at this point. It's getting closer and closer to our own backyards. And I think that's how a lot of people feel. They're just like, I would rather watch football. I'd rather watch sports. I'd rather, hang out, watch Netflix. And even, people who are like, I just want to go on a walk and enjoy nature. It's just like, okay, all these things are well and good. And I much rather do those things myself, for that matter. But it's just like, these are luxuries that we are going to lose unless we wake the fuck up and become aware that these problems are coming, that times are changing, and that if we don't do anything about it, if we don't rally up and vote, for the right people, or like demand things from our leaders, we're not going to have a chance. And that's where we're at right now. And that was just the shutdown, right? So I want to talk about how Trump has kind of gone back on everything that he's said that he was going to do for a second. The Ukraine war, the Doge cuts, and the transparency with the Epstein files, the Martin Luther King files, all these things, even the mass deportations, we're not seeing those. So all these things that he ran on, right? I think people are kind of getting fed up. I think the Charlie Kirk assassination really woke people up to how corrupt his administration is, how willing they are to lie to us, despite all of these promises of change, despite all of these promises that, it'll be the most transparent administration in history. It'll be, fiscally responsible. There'll be no new wars. Now we're looking at Venezuela. I'll talk about that in a second. But I've just seen video after video of all these people sitting here saying, oh man, I fucked up by believing this guy. And let me just tell you, I never really trusted him. I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for Kamala either. I wrote in Gary Johnson. But I mean, obviously, we all knew that it was going to be Kamala or Trump. And I didn't find it really surprising, but I was optimistic, especially when it seemed like he had a lot of good people around him this time. I really liked Tulsi. I really liked RFK. Patel seemed okay. I didn't really know him that well. Bongino seemed okay. I didn't know him that well either. But it just seemed like a lot better than what we had gotten. Bondi, I never really, had much faith in her. She always seemed like a yes man, just wanted to be on TV, maybe even want to be president one day. But let me tell you, she is the scapegoat at this point. Everybody's really rallying against her. Everybody's rallying against Kash Patel for that reason. That guy is a joke at this point. We all know he's lying. We all know he's covering for Trump and his buddies, and it's just disgusting. But this is what he promised us. He's not beholden to voters anymore. He's not running again, so I guess he just doesn't give a shit. Or his feelings have changed, which I don't know which more likely. Probably that he lied. He really comes off as a used car salesman, a snake oil salesman. But with that being said, we did get a few things out of him that we wanted, and I just hope that we can continue to get a few things. I just really, think he wants to be liked, and I just hope that the public opinion will weigh down him enough where he'll do things that he really doesn't even want to do, but the things that he promised he would do. So that's what's important, and I really think, a lot of people are waking up to that, and I think there is something to be said about how, and Fuentes had a good point on this, me and him have plenty of disagreements. We're at odds, quite often, but I will, say when somebody is right, they're right, and he is right about this issue, that both parties will do this. The right will do things that the left could never get away with, right? So when we have Republicans in office, they will, push policies like the Iraq War, Patriot Act, the bailouts and all these things. Both parties kind of work together on this. They'll do things that are unfavorable and that the other party would not be able to get away with. And then, when you saw Trump pushing this vaccine, the shutdowns, and then Biden takes over and the same thing's happening, there's no differences. And then Trump comes back, they're still pushing vaccines, they're still, going to wars, they're still funding Ukraine, regardless of what they say. So, you really got to start asking yourself, is there any difference between the parties? And, I felt that way for a long time. That's why I've been, a staunch libertarian for a long time. But it's just becoming more and more apparent. And a lot more people are getting red pilled to this. A lot more people are waking up to this. That it doesn't matter who you vote for. You're getting the same shit at the big club and you're not in it, as Carlin would say. And I really, really am in dismay at how blatantly and how quickly Trump flipped on every little thing. So, the primary season that's coming up is going to be huge. It's going to be huge because at this point, Republican, Democrat, I don't give a fuck. I want you all gone except for Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Rand Paul. Other than that, they can all go. And thankfully, my rep, Julie Johnson, is getting basically redistricted out. But, we got to make sure the people who come next are better candidates, better quality candidates who actually are America first. America first. America fucking first. That is what we're supposed to be about. That's what this administration ran on. This is what a Make America Great platform was supposed to look like. It was supposed to be, we're going to put our country first, our interests first. We're not going to put Israel first. We're not going to do what Ukraine wants. We're not going to do what Europe wants, for that matter. We're going to do what the American fucking people need. And where is that? It's gone. Nobody's even talking about that. America First seems like, fringe movement at this point. They're all just behind Trump no matter what. Now, you will see a lot of these big names like Bannon. You'll see, I'm going blank on his name, Mike Welch. You'll see a lot of these podcasters. You'll see a lot of these reporters, even Charlie Kirk, starting to criticize this administration and be like, hey, this is not really what we wanted. It's not really what we ran on. So I really hope that something changes. But the only reason it's going to change is if we keep talking out, we keep speaking out, we keep pushing. Because the alternative is violence, and we don't want that. We're not promoting violence. We don't want to engage in violence. We don't want to have to do the boogaloo. We don't want to have another revolution. But Tucker Carlson said, if you're trying to get a revolution, this is how you would act. This is the way you would behave. And so I really hope that's not the choice that we're left with. I really hope that we're left with, a few more elections, at least chances to vote for the right people who will just make these decisions at our behest and with our interests in mind. We're not putting foreign interests in front of our own at our expense any longer. So the last couple things I'm going to talk about, I got 3 more topics. Bad Bunny, right? Bad Bunny. I didn't think this story would really even be around that long, but people are still talking about it because he's talking shit now. Bad Bunny says everybody needs to learn Spanish before his Super Bowl if we want to be entertained at his Super Bowl thing. Turning Point USA is sitting here saying, oh, we're going to have an alternate concert, essentially with Creed, which I don't, whatever. But Bad Bunny was very openly anti-Trump. He was very openly anti-deportation. He basically said he was not going to perform in the United States at all if this was going to be happening. And, good riddance, whatever. But him talking shit to this level is really just going to backfire on the NFL. The NFL seems to be, being politicized, being politically oriented, and pushing back against Trump specifically. But it's going to backfire. Everybody knows you go woke, you go broke. And they've already lost so much interest with the BLM things, the Kaepernick things, which I didn't care about at all. But what makes it more annoying to me is just, Jerry Jones, and I'm a Cowboys fan, so don't really care until he's gone because he's just completely sabotaged it. Dez caught it, as I've said before. And they've watered down the sport so much that it's almost unwatchable. There's so many penalties, there's so many timeouts, there's so many commercial breaks. I haven't watched a full game of football in years, I don't think. But, the game itself is fun. It's kind of like a metaphor, an allegory for war, and I like the idea of taking ground. And, I watch UT every now and then. College football is still half decent, but even that's getting muddied down. And UT is not near as good as this year as they were last year so far, that's for sure. Really hope what's-his-face kind of picks it up. But again, I don't really care about this shit anymore because we have just bigger problems. We have bigger things to worry about. And I enjoy, sports. I enjoy UFC. I enjoy basketball. But it just seems very pointless. It seems very pointless to sit here and watch a game when the world is on the edge of a cliff. It seems very trivial. That's a good word. It's very trivial. It doesn't matter. Why the fuck would I care who wins? Why the fuck would I care if, we win the championship? Okay, but we don't have health care. We can't afford groceries. We can't afford a home. Education sucks. Our roads have huge holes in them. Our infrastructure is crumbling. China is lapping us. They have made us look silly at this point. They are just knocking us out of the park. And, it seems to be just the state of affairs. It seems to be the way it's going to go. But I don't really give a shit about Bad Bunny. I don't care about the Super Bowl, but it's just interesting how politicized everything's getting. It's spilling over into sports. So the people who don't like politics, try to escape politics with sports, are now being inundated with it. And they're now being sucked into it because it's like everything's fucking political now. You can't escape it. So you might as well face it. You might as well face the fucking problems that exist in our political system, exist in our society. Because there's nowhere to hide at this point. It's all around. And like I said, it's going to spill over to our backyards. It's going to spill over to our neighborhoods. It's going to get closer and closer to home. I saw some protesters across the street, literally from my house, literally like within walking distance. I may actually try to do some live engagements this weekend. Thinking about it. Pretty excited about that. I'll ask them, about ICE. I'll ask them about, trans minor surgeries and late-term abortions. All the fun stuff, all the controversial stuff that all these white liberals, the old ones at least, the old white liberals love to basically, argue for. So I may do that. I'm thinking about it. It'll be Sunday. I'll try to do it live. I know that, the live stream on YouTube is a little wonky, but I'll probably do it on Rumble or X. But that would be very interesting. I just hope there's no crazies out there because, you always see somebody who will run up to you, knock your phone out of your hand or something. And I'm not as patient as some of these people. I grew up, in a small town, yes, but this small town I grew up was like a third rednecks, which rough people, rough country boys. Then it was like a third Hispanic, which were clearly undocumented. Their parents were involved in cartels, so they're pretty rough around the edges. And then the other third was basically black people from New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina spilled into East Texas. So, they were pretty rough around the edges too. So this is the environment I grew up in. This is how I was raised. And I thought it was like this everywhere, but it's really not. I moved to Dallas and moved to Austin sitting here thinking, oh, the city's what's crazy. And then it's like, no, 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 no. The small towns where there's corrupt officials and small town cops that are able to get away with anything before the whole, defund the police and putting everything on video and the body cams. Before all that, it was pretty crazy. It was like a Wild West vibe, and it just felt like there was violence everywhere. And so, this is the background that I have, and it's just like, okay, well, now I, kind of appreciate it because it was, kind of like a trial by fire. I did become tougher because of it. But a lot of people will look at me and mistake that. They'll look at me and not understand that I come from that and that I faced that when I was a child, when I was a teenager. And so now it's nothing for, confrontation is nothing, like especially with these old white people. Like, I mean, give me a break. It's just going to take some self-control on my part for that matter, and just some patience, we all need a little patience. All right, last two things I want to talk about is October 7th was yesterday. It was the 2-year anniversary of the attack on the music festival. And, there was a lot of propaganda going around, but not near as much as you would expect, simply because, there's a lot of pushback these days. A lot of people are disputing their narrative. A lot of people are questioning their narrative. And I was part of that. I was arguing, and I just want to just speak about some of the points that I made and some of the research that I've done and some of the facts that I've uncovered on October 7th. And so I'm going to read this. This guy named Eyal Jacoby, who I think is known for testifying to Congress during the whole Columbia protests and Harvard issues where they were getting accused of being anti-Semitic, and they were rounding up foreign students and study abroad students and deporting them under Marco Rubio, which fuck that guy. But so I think that's where this Eyal Jacoby guy came from. I'm not entirely sure, but he was posting about a new documentary on October 7th, right? That supposedly shows the horrors and everybody wants to watch it. That's from Israel or promoting Israel. Nobody else seems to give a shit. And what I said is that unless it's going to discuss how most people ended up in Gaza as refugees or descendants of refugees, the blockade of Gaza, which happened since 2005 or 2006, Netanyahu funding Hamas, everybody knows he did wire money through Qatar to Hamas in order to prevent a two-state solution, more or less, and counterweight the Palestinian Authority, because he did not want a credible counterparty to negotiate with. And then I said the stand-down order, which Charlie Kirk himself questioned. A lot of IDF soldiers were reporting now that they were ordered to delay patrols, and there's a lot of speculation when it comes to why did it take 6 or 7 hours for a full response from the Israeli military. It just seems like they were letting it happen. Not only that, but I learned in this research that Israel actually had advance notice of these attacks. They actually heard of these attacks years in advance, and they just completely discounted them and said they were ridiculous. But it's like they knew the attacks were coming. They ordered the troops not to patrol that area that morning, and it took them hours and hours to respond. Now, there's no, admission yet that there was a stand-down order. There's not been open investigations, as far as I know, into that, but it certainly appears as that's valid. But that's the only kind of one that hasn't been proven in of all these claims. Beyond a reasonable doubt, I would say. It's kind of been proven just circumstantially, but not beyond a reasonable doubt and not been confessed upon. And the Hannibal Directive. The Hannibal Directive, Yoav Gallant, the former defense minister, said that it was applied in some places. There's reports of Apache helicopters attacking vehicles leaving Gaza. There's reports of tanks hitting buildings that had hostages. Israeli citizens killed by their own government under this directive that has been around a while, that was instituted and implemented to essentially prevent the capture of civilians for the purpose of hostages. And, you know, that's just horrific. That's just terrible. You want to talk about human shields, they don't even care about their own people. They'll kill their own people. And then, you see the hostages who like escaped and were like raising their hands up and the IDF shoots them dead. These stories just, keep occurring, keep popping up. And it's just, why would we soak up this propaganda? Why would we give a shit if you're not going to tell the whole story? The whole story, if we're going to talk about October 7th, we need to talk about all of it, not just, Hamas coming over, killing people, allegedly raping people, and taking hostages. We got to talk about what the Israeli mistakes and horrible things that they did at the same time, that led to it and made it worse than it would have been. And I made the point that people like Eyal Jacobi are doing more harm to Israel and the Jewish people than Hamas could have ever hoped to. And that's true. Like when you look at their reputation on the world stage, you look at their standing when it comes to any other country, how they regard them, it seems like Netanyahu has been detrimental for Israel's future. It seems like all support has waned in the United States, certainly in Europe. And furthermore, there's people actually calling for military action against them, which would be unheard of a couple of years ago. You're hearing Pakistan, Colombia, and a few other countries are, sending warships to carry these flotillas. I know Italy is proposing sanctions, and Europe, the EU as a whole is proposing sanctions. So you wouldn't have never heard of these things. And not only that, several of them have recognized a Palestinian state. And this is as a result, a direct result from Israel's reaction. If they had not reacted in such a way, if they had not gone as brutally hard as they have been, then you would not see their support collapse, essentially, and their window closing on actually creating this greater Israel thing that they want to create so bad. They want to take part of Saudi Arabia. They want to take most of Iraq, most of Syria, all of Lebanon, most of Jordan, parts of Egypt, and make this giant Middle Eastern empire, Jewish empire. And, that is essentially out the window. There's like almost no chance in hell that that's happening. But obviously that's what they've wanted to do. That's been their goal. And it was like a step-by-step process. But this is just an insane idea in the first place, let alone feasible. And nowadays it's just completely insane because nobody would stand for that. Nobody is standing for this right now. The entire world has woken up to what they've done, and the entire world is standing against them. And it's still not stopping them. So I hope that something changes with this peace deal. So the final thing I want to talk about, Candace Owens. Candace Owens. I hope she runs for president at this point. Fuck FBI director, fuck CIA director. She needs to be the boss because she has single-handedly exposed the entire FBI, the entire government, as being either complicit, covering up, or behind the Charlie Kirk assassination. And all the people at Turning Point, shame on them. Shame on Turning Point. They have completely, done irreparable harm to its reputation by lying this way, by attacking people who are trying to find the truth this way. And in many ways, people think they're implicated at this point. At this point, many people are suspicious of them and whether or not they had a hand in Charlie Kirk's assassination. Now, I'm not on that point yet, but I definitely think that the way they've acted since then has been completely unacceptable, completely uncalled for. I know this Tyler character, Andrew Colvett, even Erica, all of them just seem to be acting in such a distasteful, reprehensible way in light of his horrific assassination and public execution. It's a joke. And then, let's not even get started on the FBI official narrative, where we started versus where we are now. This trans lover, lone gunman, who was just radicalized on the internet, sniped Charlie Kirk, to now, who the fuck knows? It looks like a security team may have been behind it. It looks like there could have been a military operation, as Candace has said. But let me tell you something. The people who doubted her, the people who pushed back against her, the people who mocked her and shamed her, they all look bad now. They're all exposed now because, for Christ's sake, she had a text message that completely proved a screenshot that said Charlie Kirk was turning on Israel. He was. He actually said, I have no choice other than to abandon the Israeli cause, the pro-Israel cause, because of Jewish donors and the way that they were pressuring him to get rid of Tucker and get rid of Candace, but even Tucker, and the way that they would withdraw their donations, and he felt like he was being morally blackmailed, and he was being called an anti-Semite, and he was just being dragged through the mud when all he was doing was trying to, if anything, help them. He's like, hey, let me help you help yourselves by basically, helping with your PR. Let me speak for you. Let me try to figure out ways that we can help your image. And yet they would still smear him. They would still try to force him to do things he didn't want to do. They would still try to get him to turn on his friends. And so he just got fed up with it looks like. And these text messages prove it. But everybody called her a liar. Everybody said she had no receipts. And now that she's exposing it, they're all sitting here saying, oh, how could you release his private message? I didn't release it because, I was trying to honor his memory, is what Andrew said. And it's just like, dude, fuck you. Nobody buys that shit at this point. Nobody's going to believe it. Nobody thinks that's true. We're going to believe this lady who has the receipts. And even Fuentes is like, gone completely quiet on this. I know he had a show today, and I'll check on it with Dave Smith. But when it comes to, people eating crow, everybody's eating the fucking crow. There's very few people that had her back from the beginning. I'm thankful that I did because she was the only one publicly trying to get to the bottom of it, seemingly, and she was the only one close to him that seemed to give a shit. Everybody else is like, oh, let us grieve, let us just, put it off, let us get to it later, let the investigators, the authorities handle it. But fuck all that. Fuck all that. Charlie Kirk would not have let this go, and we all know that. We all know that if one of his friends was murdered like this, he would have gone to the ends of the earth to uncover the truth. And that's what we're seeing from Candace. And Candace, God bless her. I really think that, she's doing the Lord's work. I really think she's on the right side of history here. And I think that, for all her other flaws and questionable statements or whatever, none of that matters to me at this point because this lady is killing it. She is on top of this investigation, giving revelation after revelation, and really just exposing all these demons. Josh Hammer got destroyed yesterday. Oh man, what an ass, what a prick, what a piece of shit. He was literally going on talking about how he spoke to Charlie the day before, and Charlie never turned on Israel. He never blinked. And he was just talking about how, how awful it is for all these people to say these things about him. And he was in the text thread. He knew about it. He knew that Charlie Kirk was wavering and that he was sitting here saying, hey, I may have to abandon the Israel cause because of just the moral blackmail, and they want me to get rid of Tucker, and they're cutting off funds. So they're playing in all these stereotypes, he even said. All these people, misfit, patriot, especially. You even saw like the I Find Retards page. They're all just saying, I'm wrong. I was wrong. Because Candace proved them wrong. She said this happened. They called her a liar. They completely exposed themselves. And some of them knew the truth. Some of them knew better. And they did it anyways. And now look at you. Some of these careers may be over, when it comes to Josh Hammer, for that matter. I've never seen such a level of pushback, justifiably on somebody. And he's gone completely quiet. And I, joined in. It was fun. I created a little AI demon version of him. Again, I think I already mentioned this today. It didn't take much work. It just took, add a little horns here, a little red eyes here, a little teeth here, pointy ears. His face turned right into this, specimen of evil, exactly what you would expect him to look like on the inside. And I think he's just hiding at this point. I don't think he can face the world. I don't think he can face what's happening. So, Candace, we all are just, behind you. We all are waiting patiently and really engaged in your next revelations. And she even said now that, she knows she's getting some heat. She knows she's naming names now. And she said she had to kind of do a insurance policy, release all these documents to people around her that would all get exposed if she got hurt in any way. It's unfortunate that she feels that way, but it's true. We saw what they did to Charlie. I don't think they would hesitate to do it to her either. And I mean, anybody who speaks out at this point has got to be concerned. Like, I sit here and have a loaded gun in my room now, just in case. Just in case I hear something break in the middle of the night. You never know. So I just hope that everybody's on guard, but we can't be cowardly. We can't back down. We can't allow this to happen. And no one has the obligation to be brave. But I just think we're all in danger at this point. As long as we're controlled by a foreign entity, as long as our leaders are blatantly corrupt, we're all in immediate danger. And so whether you shut up, you toe the line, you put your head down, it will not matter. It will not matter at this point because it will affect us all. If we do not have control over our own country, national sovereignty has got to be our unifying factor. I think everybody in the country can get behind that. Left, right, old and young, poor, rich. I don't think it matters. Conservative, liberal, it does not matter. No matter Christian, Muslim, Jewish for that matter. If you're an American and you want America first, if you want this country to be in better shape, we can unite on not wanting our leaders to be blatantly corrupt and for us to be controlled by foreign governments. Because there is a war in America, and this is War in America. I'm Jonathan Warren, reminding you, keep fighting and live free. Thank you.